Mike Moore Media.
Hello, friends. Several years ago, I found this little statement, and I close every email that I send with it. It says, life isn't about how to survive the storm, but how to dance in the rain. You know, the journey of learning to dance in the rain is very different for each of us. And today we'd like to talk with Reverend Peter Dodge about his dance in the rain. Peter's married to Emily. They have 3 children, and currently he's the pastor at Reidsville Alliance Church. He's also a police chaplain and very involved in our community in a lot of different ways. If you haven't met him, I'm sure you will as time goes by. But Peter's a great asset to our city and to our faith community, and we could just spend hours talking about ministry and family experiences with Peter, and it's always neat to compare our notes with other ministers. But today we just have a brief time, so I'd like to focus, Peter, on your journey into ministry. Can you tell me some idea of when you were called into ministry?
Well, it's one of those things, as long as I can remember, the Lord was pushing me that way. My grandmother used to love to tell the story of the first sermon I preached at 4 years old about the disciples in the boat with Jesus in the storm, and they all cried out, "Mommy, Mommy!" And so, I mean, at a very young age, I believe that the Lord was calling me. I think it was most clear, and I knew that it was from the Lord when I was about 12 or 13 years old in junior high school, or we called it junior high back then.
Right. Well, if I remember correctly, your father was a pastor, and do you think that had any bearing on what you felt like you need to be doing in ministry?
I think it gave me an up-close personal look at what ministry was to be and what it looked like and how it was done. And, in the very beginning, I knew that's what the Lord was calling me to do, and I didn't want to do it. I just thought, no, I certainly don't want to do and go through and experience what my dad is doing and going through and experiencing. And so even though I knew the call was there, I didn't respond to it for quite some years.
Right. I understand that totally. My sons and myself have all 3 had that conversation at times over the years. Now, I understand that part of your early time there was in the Navy. Do you believe God used that in your abilities to minister more effectively?
I believe so, yeah. Part of the reason why I went into the Navy was to just kind of escape the call, escape home. It was my running away. But there were times even in the Navy, there was in boot camp and in other situations where the Lord was reaching out to me through other people. And I've definitely found that military experience has been a benefit in being able to communicate and minister with other military vets, people who are currently in the military. It's definitely, I think, become a very useful tool in my toolbox, and I'm very glad that I did it.
Oh, great. And thank you, by the way, for your service, Peter. We certainly appreciate that over the years. You have shared with me and with many folks about a life event that affected your life dramatically. And that's primarily what I think we want to talk about today, because I know that it was something that many of us don't go through. And yet I believe, based on the evidence that I see in your life today, that it was used by God, even though it was a very difficult time. So if you don't mind, let's spend a few minutes and let you talk about that and how that's helped you to become the minister that you are today.
Well, sure. As I had mentioned earlier, that I knew that there was a call on my life specifically to ministry, and that was really what I was running from. And I ran for, I made a really conscious decision in middle school that just, I want different things for my life than what you want for me, Lord, and so I'm going to take control. And so I spent my high school years looking for a good time, looking for partying, and that's what I was looking for from the Navy when I left, and I really, it was all about partying and fun, and it didn't take too long before I developed a problem with alcohol shortly after I got out of the Navy, and I was really, living as an alcoholic. I had a marriage dissolve on me because of my drinking, my life was really getting out of control until eventually I came to a point where my alcohol led to some troubles with the law. And I found myself in a jail cell facing a lengthy prison term over really what was an attempt at suicide by police officer. And so I not only was in jail, but I had been shot as well, and was facing just a dismal future, in prison. And that's where the Lord found me, and He returned to me, not with the call, but He returned to me with the offer to say, Peter, I'm still here. I'm still reaching out to you. I'm still willing to use your life and to make something out of it. And, I had brought myself to a point where I didn't have any other choice. I had no other options left. I threw myself onto His salvation, and He embraced me with everything that He had. And it was divine. I don't know how else to explain the explosion of peace and grace that came into my life during that time. Now, I really thought that, once I got saved in the county jail and learned my lesson, the Lord was going to somehow get me out of this prison sentence, and that I wasn't going to have to go to prison. As it turned out, the Lord said, no, I have another plan. I'm going to let you experience the consequences of your sin. And I actually was sentenced to 7 years in prison in Virginia. Oh, wow. And I did 6.5 before being released for good behavior and all.
Wow.
But I told people, they ask all the time, what was it like to be in prison? And the only thing I could say is, it was the freest time of my life I had experienced up to that point. Because even though I was in prison, I was free for the very first time. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't addicted anymore. I was embracing the Lord's plan for me, and I realized that His plan brings satisfaction and fulfillment. And we did Bible studies in prison. I grew so much. I spent 4 years in Bible college after prison, but I think I learned more from the Lord in those 6.5 years in prison, beforehand. Just learning from other guys, gobbling up every ministry that would send us a book or play something on the radio that we could listen to. The Lord gave me wonderful Christian brothers in prison that I grew with, and it was a marvelous. There's still some difficulties that come along. I don't want to paint a picture of prison being a lovely place, but it was for me because of what the Lord did in me and accomplished in me.
Wow.
And the doors that experience opens up for me today are just incredible. For one thing, it's just liberating to be a pastor who everybody knows has been to prison, because there's no use in hiding anything.
Of course.
I don't ever have to walk around worrying that the skeletons are going to be exposed. The worst thing I've ever done, everyone knows about, and God has forgiven me, and they see the man that God has made. And so many, I've been able to speak into so many people's lives to say, listen, I've been where you are, and I can prove it.
Right.
That I really enjoy being a pastor that challenges other people's pictures of what a pastor is. Some people think pastors, are pop out of the womb holy and sanctified and never experience the struggles that real people do. But I thank God that I know what those struggles are like, and that I know what it means to be redeemed from them.
Right. You used a term that I'm not sure I'm real familiar with. It was suicide by police officer. What does that mean?
It was an attempt. In my alcoholism, I had burned through several relationships, and what it came down to was that I was living with a woman I wasn't married to, and she did not come home. It was Easter Sunday, 1998, and she did not come home at the time that I expected she would. And through a friend, I discovered that she was staying at another man's house, and I was just that was for me a blow that I just couldn't handle anymore. I didn't have the emotional capabilities, and my response to that was self-destructive and angry. And basically, I went over to the house where she was, waving a pistol around, and The police showed up as I had anticipated that they would, and I stepped out onto the front porch and pointed my pistol at them, hoping that they would fire and just kind of take me out. It was a suicide attempt. I was too afraid to pull the trigger myself, but the Lord saved me on that night, because if I had died on that night, I would have been in a godless eternity of suffering. But He spared my life because He had a call on me and a plan for me, and because of the prayers of my mother and my grandmother as well, I believe.
Right. Wow, that's a pretty unbelievable story at times, and yet being able to stand in the pulpit and say, well, now when I was in prison, can draw some attention, I think, sometimes to some things
you can't imagine the looks I get from visitors with that one.
I gotcha. Well, I believe that your testimony, and I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing such a story with us today, Peter. And I just thank you for learning to dance in the rain with the rest of us in ministry here in Rockingham County. And we just trust that God can continue to use you in your ministry here in Reidsville and in Rockingham County. And we're excited about the many things that you're involved in, and appreciate your leadership in so many areas as well. I understand you're a police chaplain as well, and I respect that and appreciate that there are people like you that can not only help the folks in your church, but our police officers who go through some things that none of us would expect to go through many times. And you, like you say, you have that inside track on some of that. Not that they've been in jail necessarily, but that's what they deal with all the time. And I'm confident that gives you a great perspective on that. So we certainly want to say thank you for being here today. We also appreciate Mike Moore and Mike Moore Media for the platform that he provides for us here, and the opportunity to meet some amazing folks around our county like Peter Dodge. So thank you for being here as well, and let's all just go dance in the rain. Have a great day.
Amen.
Bye-bye.